Tuesday, and it's all about trucks and trailers. So I am Courtney Cooper. I am the owner of C Square Farm, and I'm a partner in Excel Star Sport Horses. I'm being helped today too by Theodore. But more importantly, the help I'm getting is from my husband. Sorry, my husband Neal Kamens. Many of you know him. Talk to Neal. Neal is going to give you all the ins and outs on trucks and trailers and CDLs, and he has visual aids, and he has all sorts of fun things. I'm going to pull in so our straw guys can leave. You guys have a great day. Ask lots of questions. Tell us where you're calling from. Or watching from. Not calling. Sorry.
Walk over here so everybody can get out of the way.
Okay.
So we started this because we had a friend client who started asking us questions. They were getting ready to buy their first truck and trailer, and we had some suggestions, and lots of other people had suggestions. So we thought we'd, come up with kind of just a kind of beginning guide to some different things. So Courtney's going to pull by, and then I am going to pull up my notes so I don't forget anything, and we'll go from there.
Awesome.
Let's wait for our diesel truck to go by.
Yeah, I have enough Wi-Fi out here. Okay.
The truck's in the way.
Okay, go ahead. I think we're fine.
I'll start over in the truck. One of the hay trucks just pulled up in front of the internet. People always ask us questions about what trucks. We have two GMC 3500 crew cab dualies, which work great for us, but that's more truck than a lot of people need. I looked up the numbers. Our old truck has like 350 horsepower and 650 foot-pounds of torque. Those numbers don't have to mean anything to you, but the new trucks of that size have like 1,000 foot-pounds of torque and like 500 or 600 horsepower. An F-150 today has about the same power that our truck had from 10 or 15 years ago. That's not really the issue. I like 2,500 trucks a lot more than 1,500 or 150s because they just sit a lot better with a trailer, but you can get by with almost anything today. You can use an SUV with a bumper pull trailer, but the bigger the truck, it's going to feel more stable. Doesn't mean you can't do it as long as you get the right size truck and trailer. I did come up with a couple visual aids because we had a lot of discussion. People asked about the difference between a gooseneck and a bumper pull. So let me get them to pop up here. Sorry, my tablet can't see me in the sunlight. So I don't know, does that show up enough on your screen?
Here, come into the shade a little bit more, so my reflection's not too in it.
Is that better?
Yeah, that's good.
So if we can see it without the reflection, let's turn this way, we'll get less reflection.
That's
Maybe.
probably okay.
Is that pretty good?
Yeah.
So on a regular bumper pull, you have the truck in blue, the little truck forces. Keep in mind, I'm an engineer. They push down on the truck. The trailer forces push down on the rear, but they actually try to lift up the front of the truck, which is why you have to be careful with a bumper pull that you have everything properly sized. There are things like load distributing hitches that will help with this, but in general, a bumper pull is always going to feel less stable than a gooseneck. If we can get to the other page. Oh, this worked great inside. But I can't get to my other page. That's so disappointing. There we go.
There we go.
So a gooseneck, all the forces push down because the weight of the trailer is either at or just in front of the rear axle. So nothing is trying to lift the truck up. And I realize this is a little geeky, but you got the engineer. And I'll show you the simple way to look at this. We're going to do a demo. We'll use the tablet as a platform and our little teeny truck. If we have a gooseneck and we push down, we can push down as hard as we want and it doesn't go anywhere. We have a bumper pull and we push down, the front of the truck wants to go up. So just so everybody knows, you can do either. It can be set up fine, but that gives you an idea of what you're looking for.
We do have our first question.
What's our first question?
Our first question is, why do you like aluminum trailers?
So we'll get into this. We just got through with kind of the idea on trucks, which is basically almost anything properly matched is okay. We have two aluminum trailers now. We have the 6-horse, which is like from 1991 and still in great shape. We have a 2+1, which I think is from about 2000, also still in really good shape. Aluminum is nice because it is far less corrosive. It can corrode, it doesn't, rust is corrosion on steel, aluminum oxidizes, so it can corrode, but far less than steel does. So it is far more forgiving. You can wash the floor less, you can forget to clean it, and when you do clean it, it will just be fine. It won't have deteriorated nearly as much. That's why I like aluminum. There are also a lot of people now that are into stainless steel trailers. Those also work fairly well. Again, the same thing. It is far less corrosive. Just so everybody knows though, regardless of whether you have an aluminum or steel trailer, let's walk over here. That one. You're gonna end up with a steel gooseneck. You can see this is painted, but it's still steel. And if Madeline can get under here, even the framework at the very front of ours is steel, and then it goes to aluminum. It's just, if it's well made, it's fine. And a well-made steel trailer is totally fine. It just means you have to be a little more careful with your paint to keep up on the painting, and you just got to be able to check for rust because that can be a problem. I think beyond that, there's also, you don't see them very much anymore. There used to be fiberglass reinforced plywood, FRP. There was a company in Maryland, H.R. Collins, made a bunch of those. You see that in a lot of, there's still FRP tractor trailer trailers, and it's fine. It's very easy to maintain because the plywood is sandwiched between the fiberglass. But if a horse kicks it, they can actually like put a hole in it, so you just don't see that as much anymore. The other structural thing that I think is more important than the whole shell, because you can maintain it, is the floor. Both of our trailers have aluminum floors. They have sheet metal over beams, which is okay. The best floors are aluminum, like interlocking girders that you see on a lot of trailers nowadays. It was not very common at all when this one was made, and I don't know that anybody was doing it in the 1990s. But that is, if I were looking for a new trailer today, I would get that, because you have these things that come together. It's not a big sheet. It has a lot of strength. It's very easy to take care of and not going to go anywhere. Anybody else have anything?
Not yet, no.
So the other things that we started talking when we were getting questions asked is, you know, what do we like about our trailers? What do we dislike? What would we change? This trailer is a 2+1. So it's a straight load with 2 in the back. And then it has room up front that you can put a 3rd horse. We like this for a lot of reasons. We almost never use the rear ramp. So we load the horses up front, we turn them around, and we back them into the stalls. From our point of view, it's a lot safer when it comes to handling the horses. You are never at the horse's rear end. I know millions of people have used and loaded horses on straight load trailers in the back, and it's been fine. People use slant load trailers where you're not exactly in the back, but you have to come and walk next to the horse's hind end. We had a slant load for years until we moved to the mid-Atlantic and started doing one-day horse trials. And then if you have a slant load, you're playing musical horses all day. You know, you put the horses on in the right order, but you want the horse that's in the front. You got to swap 3 horses. It's no fun. The straight loads are a lot better for one days. I think the horses travel well in a slant. And so if you're primarily somewhere where you do multiple day shows, a slant can be fine for that reason. I do not like a straight load where you load people and flip up the rear ramp. I just don't like to be behind horses' feet. We do have a acquaintance who, probably a decade or more ago, his mom got kicked in the head and killed by loading a horse. And they probably didn't do anything wrong. I wasn't there, but it's just like one more time to not be next to a horse's hind end. Our 6-horse is either set up for 4 or 6, and it's a head-to-head. So again, we load them on the ramp in the middle, we back them into stalls. But that's not, most people who are seeking my advice or want something, you know, are not thinking they need a 6-horse trailer. So
Question.
I don't know what that is. What's our next question?
Going back to trucks, why a dually versus a single?
The dually just gives you more tire. The rear axle is rated heavier, and it has more tires to give you a higher rating. Kind of like most tractor trailers, except for moving vans, tend to have more tires and more axles. Each tire has a weight rating. The tires on our truck and trailer are rated by E. They use a letter, and I think E is like 2,600 pounds single and 3,200 pounds, or reversed. It's 3,200 pounds per tire single and like 26 or 2,800 pound dual when they're next to each other. So it just means you can put more weight on the rear axle. So that's why dually. But people who don't drive dualies, you know, you get in it and you're like, wow, it barely fits in a parking space. It barely does. I would only get a dually if you really have a big truck. There's a huge difference if you haven't driven it between driving a regular SUV, a 1500 truck, and a 2500. The difference between a 25 and a 35 is not a big a difference in terms of ride and stuff. 2500s can have the same D or E rated tires, and you can get a lot more trailering capacity. You could get a 2500 today and easily tow, definitely our 2+1. You probably could tow our 6-horse with, you know, 4 horses in it without a problem. So I think most people who are looking to move up or something like that, you just have to consider it. They don't ride as nice, especially empty. I mean, empty, our trucks bounce because the rear springs are set for all that weight. But that's the reason, you know, that you didn't look at getting a dually. If you got a 3500, I like the dually because you're already getting a stiff suspension and you get to carry more weight.
Next question.
Yes.
Okay, it is, what is your favorite tip to learning how to drive a truck and trailer? And then,
My favorite tip is A, drive with someone who knows. B, since most people, I'm talking about our horse people, square your turns, especially in a gooseneck. In a gooseneck, you basically always square your turn. You try to drive the widest path that the truck will take because a gooseneck trailer will over-track. So it will off-track. The rear wheels of the trailer will go inside of where you're going. It's not as big a deal with a bumper pull. I know some people have occasionally said, hey, you should ride in a trailer to feel how bouncy it is. That's not a bad idea, especially around a parking lot. When I have taught people from scratch, I usually drive with them first, explain what I'm doing. If there's place you can find an empty parking lot, I will take them there, let them get some feel. And then I try to find, actually we're right near US 1 and it's a freeway, but it's not super busy. That's a good place because you can get on it, drive, you're not making sharp turns, you have nice ramps, you come off and on, and only after that do they get to come off and start making left and right turns. You just got to get used to it and try to find a spot where you can practice. And it applies whether you're driving a 2-horse or a 2+1 or the big trailer. Luckily we go in steps. I mean, Courtney and I started back in our first truck and trailer we got in 1991. It was a short bed, regular cab, Dodge 150, and a 2-horse bumper pull with a manger that was like, 11 or 12 feet long. But, we learned from that. Then we got that same trailer with an F250 extended cab. Then we got a Dodge dually with an extended cab. Then we went to a 4-horse gooseneck, a 4-horse slant load. Then we bought, then we did buy the big trailer. And then we eventually got the crew cab dualies, which are longer still. So it's all just progression. It's not hard if you take your time and just think about it. Those are the main things I wanted to talk about. There's all kinds of options. There are different axles. But everything today is so well made that the main thing is just to, make sure that, you can buy used stuff. Trailers are great used because they have very few mechanical parts. So even if there are problems with the axles, you can replace axles, or you can do all the mechanical and the brake works for hundreds, not thousands of dollars. Trucks are a little iffier because you're never sure who owned the truck before and what they did with it. So, it's not like a car. It's got 50,000 miles on it. You know what those 50,000 miles did. They drove people around in almost all places. You really, if you're going to get a used truck, need to really get it checked out because you just don't know, especially with a lot of miles, if they, hauled around stuff all the time, if they went off-road or whatever they did. We have Theodora shaking and jiggling his tags in the background. You can probably hear him. But those are the things. I like to have a bigger vehicle because it's not so much going, it's stopping. And that's really what, it's having the stability with the trailer and to stop when you really need to stop that are the important safety things.
Okay, another question.
Yes.
It says, maybe you covered this, but how do you take care of the trailers? Also, what about spares, and what do you have with you for emergencies?
Okay. Maintenance. When we had all the time in the world and 2 or 3 horses, after every event, we would pull all the mats and we would wash down the trailer and put all the mats back in and keep it spotlessly clean. But one of the advantages of aluminum is if we pull the mats every few months, there's not really any corrosion. It's not a big deal. So we basically do that. We get them inspected twice a year. Pennsylvania requires a state inspection once a year, but we usually twice a year get it in, get all the brakes checked, get the floor looked at, and occasionally you find things. On our big trailer, we had one of the side rails that was having some problem. It's a steel rail in the trailer, so it's steel, where steel and aluminum come together, and wherever you have 2 different metals, you get more corrosion. And it was good for, I don't know, 15 years after we got it, which was 10 years after the trailer was made. Eventually, though, the guy looking at it said, hey, several of these things are a problem. We can do A or B, and we, I think spent a couple $1,000s to shore that up to make sure we were safe. That, when you get in the trailer, technically, as part of your commercial driving test, you're supposed to know that every time you get in, you check all your lights, you check all your brakes. You try to do that. You don't always do that. There are easy ways when you plug in. We have a plug I replaced on this trailer that has little LED lights. So as soon as you plug it in, it gives you an LED that says it's connected. I always try to look out and just turn the lights on in the trailer, make it work. You can look at the brake controller in the truck, and if you apply your brakes, it should give you a signal that the trailer's connected. If you do those 2 things, you're in, decent shape. And then it's just like tack. You just got to, as you use it, look at it. And if you think there's a problem, see if you need to fix it. Mm-hmm. For emergency equipment and stuff hauling, as part of driving a commercial vehicle, which there's some question whether these are, and I can get into that, but you're required to have a fire extinguisher. We have a set of safety triangles in case you break down, and spare fuses. We travel with some basic tools. Always with tools, it's a good idea. Even if you're not handy, if you have stuff, someone, the odds are, can stop and help you. If you don't have any tools, the best mechanic in the world can stop to help you because they see you on the side of the road. But if you don't have the right stuff, we have trailer aid ramps instead of using a regular jack. We think those are so much easier to change tires on the trailer, and I have done that a zillion times. And once we did it, Courtney and I, we blew out a tire at like 6:30 in the morning on the way to a horse show on Saturday. And we, someone pulled alongside us and was like, your tires, blah, 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 blah. And we stopped, and there was a tire that was failing. And we stopped and we did that, and I backed up under the trailer ramp and it cracked. But we, found some boards that we had. We found some debris on the side of the road. We were able to get enough stuff under one tire to jack it up, change the tire. We carry those big crossed lug wrenches. Those are super handy, and they're $10, $15. Those are always really good. We carry a lot of stuff for the horses that people might not. We carry a whole bunch of medical supplies, but that has to do with your comfort level of how willing you're used to using that stuff on your horse, and what drugs. Certainly it doesn't necessarily help if you have that stuff, but you're not used to medicating your horse. But again, it's the same thing. If you have that with you, and somebody else happens upon you and they don't have that, but they're an experienced horse person, they might be able to help you more.
Mm-hmm. And I have another question. Can you talk about bed size when hauling a gooseneck?
We have always had an 8-foot bed, and I think that's easier. And even so, both Courtney and I have banged the trailer into either the rear window or the side rails on the back of the pickup. It happens. You drive off-road, you don't know what you're doing, you didn't pay attention. We always regret it. It's like horse accidents. It almost always happens because you didn't stop, slow down, and take your time. That said, we've put hundreds of thousands of miles on the trucks and trailers. And so the fact that we've had a few little, you go, boom, oh, shoot, I don't want to do that. You can do that. It is harder. We have people who show up here periodically who are not good at all at backing up, and we do not have a driveway where you can turn around. You have to go out the same way you came in. And so I have backed up hundreds of trucks and trailers for people. The easiest thing for me to back up is a crew cab, long wheelbase truck with an 8-foot bed and a gooseneck. The hardest thing for me to ever back up is a short truck and a little bumper pull trailer, or a short bed truck and a gooseneck, because you just worry about hitting each other. You know what happens. It's not wrong, but you need to think about, let's see, if you take a picture of this nose, Madeline, the nose on our 2+1 is tapered a little, so that's easier to deal with. This trailer is also, if you show the wheels, this trailer is like 7 feet wide inside. It's 8 feet wide, so it might only be 6.5 inside. And it's like 8 feet wide at the wheels. The 6-horse is, you can see the wheels are inside the trailer. It's actually 8.5 feet wide, and it has a square, totally square front goose. And so it is a lot easier to hit on the back window of your truck. So you just got to be more careful. That's my preference, but you got to also think about how many times you haul and don't haul. So if you don't want an 8-foot bed, because you don't want a truck like ours that's 21.5 feet long that you have to drive every day, and then get a 250 with a shorter bed. There's nothing wrong with it. I mean, the bed length really just has to do with what you have up front. If you have a short bed and a regular cab, that truck's shorter and it's not going to haul as well as a longer truck. But there's nothing wrong with hauling with a crew cab and a short bed. You just have to be careful when you turn, or make sure you have a tapered nose trailer.
We have another set of questions that you've kind of already covered, but maybe just like a quick reiteration. Do you wash your trailers? I guess meaning also maybe the outside.
We do, but we used to wash them ourselves. In Aiken, there is a wonderful trailer place. I don't remember their name. They're on Pine Log Road. They charge us it seems like nothing, like a few $100s, and they acid wash the whole trailer. They look gorgeous and do far better. We have taken the big trailer to a tractor trailer truck wash at a truck stop and acid washed it on the outside, and it looks a lot better, and they do a great job there too. You can wash them by hand with a pressure washer and stuff, but it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
You got to plug out the mats, you got to do stuff. So, I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. I certainly take the advantage. I don't know if people remember, UPS used to have these commercials where they'd show you how pretty their planes were and tell you that it made them more aerodynamic and it was easier to find problems. And they go, we also like to have shiny planes. It's the same thing. If you like to have a pretty trailer, you can wash it as much as you want. But if you get a trailer that's mostly or almost all aluminum or stainless steel, it can be washed a lot less, which is nice.
Do you have the special mats, like the brown ones I send? And
Yes,
I'm thinking that means our cocoa mat.
We do. So this one is a little frayed on the end. We like the cocoa mats just because they're nice. They vary in price. I don't know. It used to be, it seemed like this mat was like $60, and I had to go get a new one. I think it was like 120, but that's what we do. But it does mean you have to pull them in and out.
Yeah.
And so you got to decide if you like that. And if it's rainy and then they get wet, then you got to hang them over a divider. They get a little icky, but yeah, we use the cocoa mats.
Okay, then we have a lot of questions actually. Do you like straight loads, head-to-heads versus slant loads, which you kind of touched on?
We like the straight loads mostly because we do a lot of one-day horse trials. And so if you have a straight load and it's wide enough, you can work on the horses. Like in our 6-horse, when we set it up for 4s, remember the trailer is 8.5 feet to the outside of the walls. It's like 8.25 feet inside. Even though our 2 dividers in the front have a little gap, you get almost like 3.5, 3 3/4 foot per each horse. You can saddle and untack, you can do studs. It's awesome. We don't teach our horses to tie very well. Some people do. If your horses tie, it's not as big a deal. I think horses travel best backwards. So we actually, when we use the head-to-head, if we only have 2, we frequently put them in the front. Plus, then they're not in the rear of the trailer, so if someone were to actually hit you, you have a lot of space to where the horses are going to be. But I think anything can work. I mean, I don't know that horses would care. The only thing is, I mentioned it, slant loads at a one-day horse trials, you play musical horses, and it's no fun. But if you live in the South or the West, and you frequently go long distances and almost always stable, then it doesn't matter, and slant loads are nice. You can load the horse. If you do get a slant load, I always like ones where it's easy to remove the back center bar. That's not the right center.
The
post,
back tack.
and the back tack collapses, because If your horse is used to it, it's great. You can load them right on, you can back them right off, or maybe they're happy to turn. But if you're the last horse and you don't like, that horse does not want to back off, then you really want to be able to collapse everything to get them have the full width off. The same thing for loading. If the horse has trouble loading and you want to be able to give them the whole width of the ramp, whether it's a side-by-side loading on a rear ramp or a slant load, that's much nicer. I also forgot to mention step-ups. Our slant load, our 4-horse slant load was a step-up. We have a client now who has a step-up. If the horses get used to it, it's great. Some people think it's even safer because they're never on an angled surface, but they do take some time to get used to it.
Okay, then we have, what about gooseneck hitches? Are there any special ones? I'm guessing for the truck, maybe?
The balls in the truck are pretty much the same. There are slight differences how the chain's attached. That's not a big deal. The special gooseneck thing that I know is, if we look at this with Madeline, this one has this tapered big area. You can put the ball anywhere in here, and it has, if she looks underneath, it's angled. It's much easier to hitch up because I can put the ball right here and the trailer will slide under the ball. It also has this coupler that you can do from outside. Come on to this side. And if you pull this, the coupler goes down, and if you keep it greased well enough, which is actually one of the problems of this, I can grease this like every week and it still doesn't do it. It will slide back down, so sometimes I have to manually push it down. We broke a coupler on our big trailer and had to replace it. And the one we got is that old manual kind. You just have to be a better driver because your target area is, this big with the ball. Whereas on this one, your target area is this big.
This one is from my mom. It says, any videos you would recommend for tips for first-time haulers?
I don't know. I grew up driving the truck and trailer before videos were online, so
practice.
I'm old school. I'm sure there are a lot that are useful. The main tip is learn to drive with somebody, and then if you drive a gooseneck especially, learn to square your turns going forward. The other thing that's both the law and very good safety-wise is do not pull left in order to make a right turn. So by law, you're supposed to stay in your lane and turn. When you turn, you're allowed to turn into both lanes and block the whole street. But you are actually not allowed to pull left across the double yellow line in order to go right. You can't always do that because if you're turning into a narrow driveway, sometimes you have to do that. But just know when you do that, it's dangerous because people will try to sneak by on the right. I have many times, we live, like I mentioned, right near US 1. We get off at this ramp. You stay straight in your lane, you have your right turn signal on, and I'm always worried that someone will come up on the right and want to make the right turn ahead of me because they don't want to wait. And so when you go to turn right, you have to look, and there are times where I have to just stop and honk and let the people go or do something because otherwise you will crush them. The biggest issue you have, the first time I took my CDL exam, I actually failed because I had no idea what I was going to have to do, and you have to back up in a straight line for 200 feet. You have to do this double blind reverse backup with your trailer. But anyway, when I failed the first time, I talked to the examiner afterwards, and he gave me a few tips about the parts of the exam we didn't get to. And he said their biggest pet peeve, not pet peeve, but requirement, is that when you turn and it's to the right, the rear wheels of your trailer cannot cross, either hit the curb or if there's a white line on the right, hit the white line. Because that's where people get hurt. That's where a pedestrian is standing by the side of the road. You turn right, you run over the curb, and you run over the pedestrian. So from a safety standpoint, that's the biggest thing to keep out for. It's also very important with your trailer, especially in a gas station or something, because that's what you'll do. Your rear wheels will want to go over something.
Says, do you do anything special when you hitch up? What about checking brakes, lights, etc.?
I do. Like I said, we keep our trailers hitched up a lot. So a lot of things don't, but I do make a note. I turn on the lights if it's daytime and look and make sure the running lights come on. I do check the brake controller, or on our big trailer, it has hydraulic brakes so you can hear it because when you hit the brakes, the controller will activate. You can tell by the feel when I pull the trailers out how much trailer braking you're getting, and I look to adjust it because it varies. If we have 6 horses in the 6-horse, it will need a lot more braking than but you just, you have to see. If you want to be really rigorous, you get another partner out, you turn on your right turn signal, your left turn signal. I check the tire pressure before we go on big trips. That's your biggest thing. Tires hate sitting around. I've probably blown out, I don't know, a dozen, 20 trailer tires in the couple decades of doing this. I guess it's 3 decades of being with Courtney and hauling horses. Knock on wood, I can only remember one truck tire that failed on me while we were driving. Tires like to be driven, so the ones on the trucks always do better than the ones on the trailer. You just got to check your pressure and look at them, and things will happen. And when they do, someone mentioned spares. I forgot to answer. We carry 1 spare. When you check your air, you want to check the air in the spare tire as well. Because I will tell you again, it's nothing worse than you stop on the side of the road, you find some nice person to help you change your tire, and your spare is flat. Then you have no help. We have a client who, she had problems. She always carried 2 spare tires. She carried the one on the trailer and another one in the truck. It's just like she had gone through where, you're 2 hours into your trip and you get a flat tire, you change it, and what happens if 6 hours later, they lived in the South, they went far places, and so she used to carry 2. We just carry 1, but most of our trips are shorter. And by using our trailers more, things are easier to maintain. It's when they sit around that things sneak up on you. You don't know that it feels different. I mean, I will tell you, most problems we have, we know about because Courtney makes a 15-mile round trip and comes back and says, X doesn't feel right. And, she may not know what it is technically, but she knows the trailer didn't brake right, or it didn't ride the way it normally rides, or something sounded funny.
Good. No more questions.
There you go. Courtney kept mentioning CDLs, and I mentioned a little. I'll just touch on that. So a commercial driver's license, you need to operate a commercial vehicle. There are federal laws and then state laws that vary a little. The simple version is if your truck and trailer, I would say way more than 26,000 pounds, but as a state trooper explained to me in writing me out several tickets many, many years ago, he was taught to enforce it by the weight rating of adding your truck and trailer together. So even though the truck we had a combined weight rating of 23,500, he added the 11,500 pound weight rating for the truck and the 17,000 pound weight rating for the trailer, and he got 28,500, and he said I needed a CDL. And I went and talked to an attorney, and he said, well, I don't know who I agree with, but if you don't want to have a problem and get pulled over, or if you get pulled over, you want to have the right license, it's easier to get the CDL. So both Courtney and I have commercial driver's licenses. The test, the only part that's really, there's a written test, but you can study for that. The only part that's hard is you got to learn all those maneuvers, like I said. And the first time I took the test, I didn't know I was going to have to do that. But after I did, I practiced. I found a empty parking lot and learned up to back in a straight line. I learned how to do the double blind backup maneuver. And then Courtney knew what to expect, so she passed the first time, which is not surprising. She's better at a lot of these things than me when she puts her mind to it. All right. So that's all I've got. If you guys have more questions, you can always email, message us, and Courtney and I would be happy to answer them. I think a lot of it is not nearly as, it seems more threatening than it is, especially if you can get somebody who helps you, who has experience with it. And vehicles today, both trailers and trucks, are a lot better, a lot safer, just like cars are a lot safer. So you can use a lot of combinations. Just don't overdo what you're doing. If you're hauling one horse around every now and then, like I said, I don't really like bumper pulls. We have a client who lives in Ohio. She has a 2,500 pickup truck with a short bed. She has a 2-horse bumper pull. She goes thousands of miles every year, hauls back and forth to the South, comes out to see us. She loves it. It hauls great, works great for her. She almost always just has one horse. She's had occasional trouble, but just so have we, and it works fine. So you can do anything you want without being a problem, as long as you put some common sense into it. So tune in, I guess, next week. We'll see. I don't know what Courtney's going to talk about, but again, happy to hear anything from you. Everybody take care. Thanks.